Right. All right, folks. So we're just a little bit past 4 o'clock here. And so I just want to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting today on the unceded traditional territories of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. And as is our practice, we'll read from the 94 calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. And this is called Action 52, Equity for Aboriginal People in the Legal System. We call upon the Government of Canada, provincial and territorial governments, and the courts to adopt the following legal principles. Aboriginal title claims are accepted once the Aboriginal claimant has established occupation over a particular territory at a particular point in time. And 2, once Aboriginal title has been established, the burden of providing any limitation on any rights arising from the existence of that title shifts to the other party asserting such a limitation. And we'll move on to the business of the meeting. First is adoption of minutes for June 25th. Moved and seconded. Any questions on that? Seeing none. Anyone opposed? And that passes. And business arising from minutes, we have the follow-up on the delegation from Washington Resort Association asking for a letter of support, and I'll just pass it over to our CEO to follow up on that.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And as is the board's practice, in not making decisions at the same meetings at which delegations are presented, we do present the recommendation here before you for consideration about the delegation that was a couple weeks back. And the recommendation would be that the RD staff engage with the association about its municipal and regional district tax application, and that we would report back to the board with any information that would support a letter of support for that application. So with that instruction, we would engage with the association and report back.
And I'll pass it over to Director Grieve.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I first heard about the application at the beginning of May, and apparently there was a deadline, the 18th of May, that the ministry was hoping to have the letter of support. And now we're approaching August, so how critical is it with the ministry to make these requests on time? And is Mount Washington, which is our #1 non-public employer in the Comox Valley, are they in any jeopardy of losing their MRTD?
I don't understand that they would have any jeopardy in losing that MRDT. They do need to make that application, and it's important that the regional district or the local government who would be providing a letter of support understand the 5-year action plan, understand the operations of the association, and also understand how its activities would interact or complement the work of the tourism service itself within the CVRD. So those are all expectations that the Destination BC puts on MRDT applicants, and so engaging with the association at this time would be an appropriate action to take.
Thank you very much. Well, just to follow up on that, because I do understand that their MRDT applications predate even the Comox Valley Economic Development Society's application. So it's been going on for many, many years. So it's just a change in CVRD policy, because it was always pretty well rubber stamped, being that they ran their own show up there. And you know, I think we've proven we're not exactly friendly to some economic development initiatives. So what are we looking at for a timetable then for Mount Washington?
I don't expect it would take a ton of effort to be able to engage with the association and come back to the board. We can certainly aim for the end of this month, although that might be a bit of a quick turnaround, and it depends on what on how that engagement goes and what information we can receive. So we understand the interest in getting a response back as quickly as we can, and we'll aim for that next board meeting.
Okay, all right, and Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. I'll move the recommendation.
All right, that's been moved and seconded, so that's on the floor. Any comments or questions on the recommendation?
We vote on receipt.
We didn't actually have a receipt motion there, but yeah. All right, any questions or comments on the recommendation? Seeing none, any opposed? And that carries. As we move into reports, we have the Electoral Area Service Committee minutes for June 24th. That's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions on those minutes? Any opposed? And that passes. And then the Rec Committee minutes for June 25th for receipt. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions on that? And any opposed? And that carries. And the next is a report from staff dated July 2nd regarding a request for Mid-Island Air Search and Rescue for financial support. And I'll thank you. Moved and seconded, and I'll pass that to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Howie Siemens, our Manager of Emergency Programs, will be able to introduce this report. I think it's a fairly quick introduction, but Howie, over to you.
Great. Thank you, James, and to the chair, to the directors. The purpose of this report is to have the board consider a 2024 grant request from the Mid-Island Air Search and Rescue Society, and to further consider Mid-Island SAR for ongoing funding through the 25 to 2029 financial budgeting processes under Function 265, which is the search and rescue for Comox Valley. Just provide you a little bit of background for Mid-Island Air Search and Rescue Society. It is a volunteer nonprofit organization that provides air search and rescue services to public under the umbrella of the Civic Air Search and Rescue Association and in support of the Provincial Emergency Program AIR, which is PEP-AIR, which falls under the mandate of Emergency Management BC. They are based out of Nanaimo Airport with a service primary covering Mid-Island, which includes the Comox Valley. The service provides the following items: assisting in searching for missing aircrafts, homing devices as directed by Military Joint Rescue Coordination Center, responding to calls from the Provincial Emergency Coordination to assist ground and marine search and rescue groups to search for missing persons, hikers, boaters, or backcountry travelers. These searches are performed regardless of age, ability, ethnic, gender or religion or income to those, and they're not charged. Providing service to any member of the public at no charge does align them well with the CVRD strategic driver community partnerships and falls within the scope of the CVRD's search and rescue grant and aid service establishment by law 2985 that is supported by Function 265. Their requests are funding support for 2024 in the amount of $2,400 to cover the activation of an airtime service for 2 new GPS units purchased to provide new safety regulations that were set forth by Canadian Forces 442 when they're working with volunteers. This will require the approval of the 2024 financial budget to be amended for Function 265. And to be considered for the ongoing funding through an annual operational grant during the CVRD's 2025-2029 budgeting process. This fund will be considered under the 265 Comox Valley Search and Rescue, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, not seeing any questions. Sorry, Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Howie, for the report. I'm certainly supportive of the staff recommendations, but the report does make reference to the funding that the regional district does provide to search and rescue in general, and in particular the 100,000 towards their new building. And I'm just wondering if there's any update on their search for a new home.
Yes, through the chair to director, we have, and I'll maybe defer some of this to Lucy. We are working on a business case very closely with, and you're referring to the Comox Valley Ground Search and Rescue Team, and which is under this portfolio does get a little confusing. But yeah, it's the ground search and rescue team with the yellows and blue trucks. We are putting a strong business case to work directly with them. And as you know from the report, is that we have established $100,000 towards reserves for land or buying a building.
All right, thanks, Howie. And I see a question from, and I should note that Director Brown and Director Arbor are both attending virtually on Zoom. And Director Brown, you had a question.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm just wondering if this is like, is this a new organization that's just started providing services, or what's like the history of the partnership? Howie, if you could speak to that.
I know in their background paper, they've been around for many years. They approached this based on just the demands, as we see with other search and rescue teams, have increased in communities, all the call outs they have. And again, being a nonprofit, there is no direct funding. So, but they do have a long history. And if I can get back to you with it, if you want the actual on that at some point.
No, that's fine. I was just looking to the, how this hasn't been included in the service in the past. I'm supportive of the move towards adding this to the service, but just curious about that history and why it's come now.
Yeah, through the chair to the director, I just, again, as I sort of have said, is a lot of the nonprofit volunteer groups are finding it hard in the times of costs, one, and then the increased demand on their services. That's I think they're realizing they're looking at for opportunities to get funding from local governments, more local, government support if they can.
Thanks.
And Howie, I was just noting, I wonder if perhaps the reason we're getting this request is they've just had this recent requirement by 442 Squadron to provide another, I guess, to provide 2 GPS units, which is what this is specifically for. Do we know going forward, just I suppose I can ask this in relation to recommendation 2 when it comes up, what we anticipate their future requests being in terms of figures, because this is obviously a specific request for a capital investment.
Yeah, to the chair. I think that this is an opportunity for what I usually work. Doug and I meet with the different agencies and groups to have that dialogue, to determine what it is they might need for future. I know in just preliminary conversations with them, they were just looking at asking for the air service to be covered in future years. But I think this is an opportunity to really look long-term and sustainability for them and have that further conversation.
Okay, that sounds good. And certainly a very modest request at this point by them, given the service they provide to the community. And a question from Director Wells.
Thanks, Chair. You asked the question, the main question I was going to ask about that for sure. So I appreciate that. I guess if we look at other search and rescue, or if, when we look at our service that we have here, we compare that, say, with the Regional District of Nanaimo or Mount Waddington, are they already funding them as well? Or is this because it's something that I'm expecting they're supporting these other regional districts as well?
Yeah, and through the chair to the director, I can't fully answer that. All I know, and again, just for a quick conversation with them before I came in and wrote the report, was they were reaching out to others in the area, to other local governments and regional districts, to see if they can gain some support.
Perfect. So, and I guess when that comes back for that more fulsome, how this moves forward, that all that information will probably be dialed in it by that time. So.
Yeah, that'll give me time to work at looking at the budgeting process for the next 2025. Yeah,
thanks so much. And very much in support.
Okay.
All right, thanks. That's been a good discussion. So we do have receipt on the table. Any opposed to receipt? And then there are 2 recommendations. First one is for funding. Okay, first and seconded, and that's for 2,400, and that will be added retroactively to the financial plan coming from the 2024 reserve contribution. And any questions on that? Now the recommendation's on the floor. Any opposed to that recommendation? Carries. And recommendation number 2? Moved and seconded to be included in future financial budgeting processes. And any questions on that? Any opposed? And that also carries. All right, next we're looking at appointment to the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board. And I know Director Arbor has represented us ably for many years there and appreciate his service, but with a lot on his plate, it looks like he's withdrawing from that role. And we're looking at possibly Director Hardy if he's interested in contributing in that fashion. So we, first of all, we'll just take a motion for receipt. Okay, that's moved and seconded. I'll pass that over to staff. I believe that Lisa.
Sure, I think Lisa Dennis, our Manager of Legislative Services, will have a little bit to add here, but it's a pretty straightforward request, I think. Lisa?
Yeah, so through the chair and the CAO to the directors, yeah, so I think it's pretty straightforward. As you see there, but the only note I would add is that this is an annual appointment. So that's why the recommendation includes for the remainder of 2024. So this would come back to the board probably in November for 2025 and annually from then on. So that's why the recommendation is phrased that way. Thank you.
I suppose we should ask Director Hardy if you were willing to accept this.
Say I do.
Just intro.
Yeah, first and foremost, I'd like to thank Director Arbor for his time on that board. I know he spent a lot of time and effort being on that board, and with his new job, he needs to find a little bit of a reprieve from just work. So yeah, I'd love to take on the position for 2024, and we'll see how things go in the fall.
Excellent. Well, that's great to hear. I think we still have a motion for receipt on the table. So any opposed to that? And then if someone wants to move the recommendation. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? Any opposed? And congratulations, Director Hardy, on the Courtney rep. So I'll be seeing you around the table every now and then. But no late ones, of course. Now we've got a few items. We've got the next report is the Electoral Areas Service Committee from yesterday, and it's a planning application resolution. And so we have recommendation 1 regarding development permit DP 9A Kensington Bay Union. Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? All right, and it's a vote of the areas. Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. And recommendation 2, this is again a vote of the areas regarding an accessory building and setbacks. Any questions on that? Any opposition? And that also carries. Recommendation number 3, also development permit regarding maximum floor area for 1 agritourism cabin. That's been moved and seconded. Any commentary? Anyone opposed? Okay, and that passes unanimously. We'll move to 4 to increase the maximum lot coverage for the construction of a deck on a property. And any comment on that? Okay, again, the vote of the areas. Any opposed? And that passes. And recommendation 5 for a temporary use permit. Okay, and other people can too. But that's been moved and seconded. It's vote of the areas. Any comments? And that passes unanimously. Recommendation 6 for second. Okay, moved and seconded. You switched the order just to keep it fresh. Any comments on that? Vote of the areas. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And move 7. Okay, moved and seconded. Again, a vote of the areas. Any comments or questions? That passes unanimously. Now we'll move to bylaws and resolutions. This is first, second, and third reading. This is the Graham Lake Water Service Establishment Bylaw number 732. Moving first and second. That's a vote of everyone. It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Third reading, first and seconded. No questions. Any opposed? And that passes. Third reading and for adoption.
26 for adoption.
Yeah, okay. And it's moved and seconded. Any questions? The vote is full board. Okay, any opposed? Passes unanimously. And wow, no business, no addendums, no media questions or terminations. It's been a grueling 22 minutes. So it's good to have had you all here with me. Enjoyed the rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.